A truck bomb explodes in the parking garage of New York's World Trade Center in February 1993, shaking the North Tower's foundation. 6 people are killed, and over 1,000 are injured in this first strike on American soil by Middle Eastern terrorists. The attack's mastermind, Ramzi Youssef, turns out to be a young extremist, trained in one of Osama bin Laden's Afghan camps. It's a failed bid to topple the Twin Towers, but it signals a new threat. We didn't know who he really was at the time. We underestimated him, an intelligence expert later reflects, as investigators begin to grasp that Al-Qaeda, bin Laden's shadowy network, is behind or linked to these early attacks. What few realized was that Osama bin Laden's campaign had already begun overseas. In December 1992, bin Laden financed a bombing at the Gold Moher Hotel in Aden, Yemen, targeting US troops on their way to Somalia. The Americans had left hours before the blast, which killed 2 Yemeni bystanders. And in November 1997, 62 people, most of them Western tourists, were massacred at Luxor, Egypt, by Islamist gunmen. Bin Laden is thought to have funded that attack as well. By the late 1990s, Al-Qaeda's strikes were escalating in scale and boldness. Bin Laden's associates were stepping up their war on the West, honing tactics and testing responses. Each attack was more brazen than the last, and the West was barely beginning to pay attention. The turning point came on August 7, 1998, when near-simultaneous truck bombs obliterated the US embassies in Nairobi, Kenya, and Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. These were highly coordinated, complex terrorist attacks. In Nairobi, the bombers packed 400 to 500 cylinders of TNT into a truck, enhanced with ammonium nitrate fertilizer to amplify and direct the blast. In Dar es Salaam, another massive 2,000-pound device was wired to explode in tandem. Both bombs detonated within minutes of each other, engulfing the embassies in fire and debris. The carnage was devastating. 224 people were killed, 213 in Nairobi and 11 in Dar es Salaam, and over 4,000 were injured. There was no doubt who was behind it. Bin Laden's Al-Qaeda had delivered its deadliest blow yet. In the aftermath, the FBI put Osama bin Laden on its 10 most wanted fugitives list, and Western intelligence agencies finally snapped to attention. Yet officials would later admit that the scope of the threat was still not fully grasped. The worst was yet to come. Empowered by what he saw as a victory, bin Laden only escalated his anti-American rhetoric after the East Africa bombings. He railed against the United States for its support of Israel and of regimes oppressing Muslims, from Russia's war in Chechnya to India's crackdown in Kashmir. His foremost grievance, however, was the presence of American troops in Saudi Arabia, near Islam's holiest sites. In a 1998 fatwa, bin Laden thundered, "For over 7 years the United States has been occupying the lands of Islam in the holiest of places." He cast the Americans as crusader armies, defiling the sacred soil of Mecca and Medina. By 1998, bin Laden had in effect declared war on the United States, urging Muslims to kill American soldiers and civilians alike in revenge. Western experts and spies now understood his intent, at least in theory. But they did not yet imagine the scale of the attack he was planning next. The rugged terrain of Afghanistan's Hindu Kush Mountains has long been ideal for guerrilla warfare, and during the Soviet-Afghan War of the 1980s, this region became a brutal battleground. The Soviets attempted to crush resistance through indiscriminate bombing campaigns, devastating entire villages. By mid-decade, millions had been displaced, fleeing as refugees into neighboring Pakistan and Iran. Casualties were staggering, with at least 500,000 lives lost, though some estimates suggest the toll could have been 3 times higher. The conflict quickly turned into the Soviet Union's Vietnam, an unwinnable war that drained resources and morale.
You know, people underestimate how pivotal Afghanistan was for Osama bin Laden. Initially, bin Laden was just moving supplies and volunteers from Saudi Arabia through Pakistan into the mountains. But then, in '84, he teamed up with his mentor, Abdullah Azzam, to form Maqtab al-Khidma.
Essentially a fundraising machine to bankroll the jihad against the Soviets. They brought in cash from across the Arab and even the Western world, funneling it directly into training camps and weapons. Their main base, Al-Masada, or the Lion's Den, trained hundreds of Mujahideen fighters. The real turning point for bin Laden personally came at the Battle of Jaji in 1987. Strategically, it wasn't a huge deal in the grand scheme, but for bin Laden, it was everything. Thanks partly to glowing coverage from a Saudi journalist named Jamal Khashoggi. Suddenly, bin Laden wasn't just another financier. He was a battle-hardened mujahid, a folk hero.
The establishment of Maktab al-Khidamat was critical. It laid the foundation for what would become the global jihadist movement. As Soviet defeat loomed by the late 1980s, internal divisions emerged within the group. Bin Laden and Azzam believed their mission was broader, expelling all non-Muslim powers from Muslim lands. This vision gave birth in 1988 to Al-Qaeda, literally meaning the base or the foundation.
Al-Qaeda wasn't just about Afghanistan, it was about everywhere. From day one, they wanted to launch a global jihad to push the West, especially America and Israel, out of the Islamic world. They couldn't take on armies directly at first, so terrorism became their method of choice. Also, and this is key, they didn't just target the West. They saw moderate Muslims as traitors who needed to be brought back into line through strict Sharia law.
By 1989, as the Soviets withdrew and Afghanistan descended into civil war, bin Laden returned to Saudi Arabia as a celebrated war hero. He immediately began leveraging his family's substantial wealth and connections to further al-Qaeda's reach. However, bin Laden quickly found himself at odds with the Saudi government, especially regarding regional conflicts, like the civil war in South Yemen.
Bin Laden's breaking point with Saudi Arabia really came in 1990, after Iraq invaded Kuwait.
The Saudis invited American troops to stage in their country to push back Saddam Hussein. Bin Laden absolutely lost it. He offered his own Afghan-trained Arab Legion instead. Imagine that. But King Fahd turned him down cold. Bin Laden viewed American boots on Saudi soil, so close to Islam's holiest sites, as an unforgivable betrayal. He went full-scale public, railing against the Saudi royal family for welcoming Western infidels. He tried to get Saudi religious authorities to issue a fatwa against the US presence, but it backfired massively. The Saudi government had enough and finally kicked bin Laden out in '91. From that point forward, bin Laden and al-Qaeda took their jihad directly to the heart of the Western world, setting the stage for attacks that would reshape global politics forever. Late in 1998, Osama bin Laden greenlit a devastating plan, masterminded by Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, targeting America's symbolic heart, the World Trade Center. By 1999, they were meticulously selecting operatives who knew English and could blend into Western society. Men like Mohammed Atta, Marwan al-Shehi, and Ziad Jarrah were chosen quickly, along with Hani Hanjour, a skilled pilot crucial for the mission. By early 2001, al-Qaeda had 19 operatives embedded across the United States in terrorist cells. They trained, planned, and awaited orders. On September 11th, 2001, the morning broke like any other day, but by mid-morning, the world had changed forever. American Airlines Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower, and shortly after, United Airlines Flight 175 hit the South Tower. A third plane hit the Pentagon, and a fourth, intended for the Capitol, crashed in Pennsylvania after brave passengers fought back. Thousands were trapped inside the burning towers. Within an hour, both towers collapsed into clouds of smoke and rubble, claiming nearly 3,000 lives. This wasn't just an attack. It was a calculated statement designed to terrify and alter history itself. the hunt for Osama bin Laden became America's relentless obsession. After years of painstaking intelligence work, the CIA tracked bin Laden's courier to Abbottabad, Pakistan, identifying a suspicious compound. Surveillance intensified, and by early 2011, analysts were certain bin Laden was there. On May 1st, 2011, President Obama authorized Operation Neptune Spear. Navy SEALs stealthily entered Pakistan and descended on bin Laden's fortified hideout under cover of night. After a brief firefight, they reached bin Laden on the 3rd floor. Seconds later, the architect of 9/11 lay dead, shot down in the doorway of his bedroom. Bin Laden's body was quickly disposed of at sea to prevent any martyrdom shrine. But even with his death, the shadow he cast over the world didn't vanish. The threat he represented mutated, evolving into new extremist forms that continue to haunt global security. Bin Laden's end was not closure. It was merely the closing of one chapter in a complex, ongoing narrative of global terror.
Thank you for watching, and if you like the content, subscribe. Now, if you have already subscribed, thank you for the support. Until next time.